Today we're going to look at a very simple thing, which is all about measuring campaigns. So if you're looking at a campaign, and by campaign here I'm referring to an activity to raise money over a period of time, perhaps a direct mail piece, your Christmas appeal for example, or an email blast, or a particular Facebook campaign that you're doing to raise money from your current donors. So these are what I'm going to call warm campaigns. So this is something that we're doing from people who've donated previously. Generally speaking, what happens is we would measure how well is this Christmas appeal doing to last Christmas appeal. So we might look at Christmas 2012 and say, let's compare that to this year. So Christmas 12, we raised $500,000. This year we've raised $420,000, so it's not doing as well. And that seems on the face of it perfectly reasonable, but as lots of things in reality and in the real world of fundraising, it's not that simple. Firstly, there's a particular theory that's going to affect any individual campaign, and this is a technical term, and it's often used in fundraising about what can happen that's sort of beyond your control, okay? And that is known as the shit happens theory. Okay, so you've got your campaign, you've done your campaign, and it just seems to not be doing as well as last year. So you start blaming the data, or you look at the copy, or you look at the design and think, what's wrong with this? Why is it not doing as well? And it actually could be just down to shit happens. And shit happens is things like what could have happened is somebody else, a competitor, dropped their appeal a couple of days before. Something else happened. There was a big press story, or it's just luck. The weather was bad. The weather was good. People were out. Their audience were all doing something else. There was some football on. All sorts of different things might affect it. And I'd say that shit happens is going to give you plus or minus 15%. So if your campaign seems to be doing really well, but it's only 15% up on last year, that could be just due with shit happens. Now the good thing about shit happens is that it kind of evens out over time. So because shit happens is luck, so sometimes it's going to be good and sometimes it's going to be bad. So what we really ought to be measuring is how well have we done over the whole year. Beyond just shit happens, there's other things that you might have done that would affect this campaign. So whilst you might think, well, our Christmas appeals only raised 420, and last year we raised 500, you need to look at the context. So if I'm looking at that calendar year, perhaps I've raised a lot more money in the year through other sources. Perhaps I've increased the number of mailings in that year. Or maybe I did a campaign in October or November and it did really, really well. And people that would have given in Christmas gave a little bit earlier. Or perhaps I didn't mail as many people, or I mailed particular different people, or I lost some particular important donors. All sorts of different things that could happen that were in your control, but you haven't taken them into account for this campaign. So at the top level, the board or the CEO or whoever you have to report to suddenly sees this and just says, well, look, this is not good. Things aren't going as well. We should do it differently. The copy's not right. We should fire the agency or hire an agency. All sorts of different things. Or brilliant, this agency is doing really well. But all of those different things may or may not be contributing factors. So if I go into this beyond the shit happens, what I want to actually do, what I want a report of is not just how that campaign is done. I want to be looking at how much money I've raised from all of my donors over that period of time. I need to take into account retention, like numbers of new people that have come in, and attrition, number of people have left. But ultimately, I want to judge the success of my fundraising on an ongoing basis, not on one campaign. So for example, if this is my graph, I've got time across here, and these are months. So in this case, from January, February, March, all the way to November and December. And then I've got my income raised. Then what I might do is I might look at, well, this is how much money we raised in 2000. We did a campaign here, and then it sort of comes out, and then there's another campaign. So that's how much money we raised in 2011. And then I might have another one, which is like, comes along, we've got different campaigns. That one went out a bit earlier, and it did a bit better, but the one went out a bit later. and there's 2012. And then I'm now working in 2013, so I might look at it and say, well, look, we started off better, it sort of seemed to do a bit better, we did this campaign, and then it sort of came a bit worse, and it sort of was tracking a bit worse, and then we've just launched this campaign and we're here. And that's actually going to be more interesting than just looking at how this particular campaign around October in this case has done. And then I'll track how that one did as time goes on. And that's what I should be measuring. So at any given point, if we were doing this same exercise, but we were now in 2014, kind of run out of colours. What colour haven't I used on there? This sort of purpley colour. So now I'm in 2014, and I've just started. I'll finish off my 2013. We had a good year in the end in 2013. But in 2014, I've just started. We go out early. Our first campaign does very well. And I'm now in June, and we're here. And I'll be interested in where we are at that point in time, rather than just looking at that particular campaign. And that's really important. So what we need to do is measure the year to date against previous years, not the actual individual campaigns. So the board, if they're really interested, they should never get, here's how well our Christmas appeal did compared to last year. They should only ever really get a report about how well we're doing to date. That's a really important thing to note, because it's the only thing that's really going to take lots of context into account.